Hello, this is Mike O'Hara from the Natural Products Association. I'm Vice President of Membership, and joining me today is Mark LeDoux, the Chairman and CEO of Natural Alternatives International. Mark is also the Chairman of the Board for NPA. Mark, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. I'm joining you from our lake home in northern Wisconsin, probably the only place in the country that's not 100 degrees today, but happy to join in.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I'm glad you're cool, so that's good too. So a couple questions
for
you, Mark, and just really for you personally and for NAI, why are you guys members? Why are you members of NPA?
We've been members ever since I got into the industry back in the early 80s. We actually, the NPA really has evolved over the years to be sort of the most venerable, but certainly to some degree the most dynamic organization that in real time can address issues that concern access to healthy products that our members produce or sell. And when I first started in this business in 1975, the landscape was largely independent and small regional health food stores, health food store distributors, and then brands that were emerging or developing. And over the decades, there's been kind of a shifting going on. There's been a recalibration. When the Internet of Things became reality just 10 years ago, a lot of the smaller retailers have had difficulty really keeping their doors open, and then COVID hit, and it's just been one challenge after another. But at the NPA, what we've really focused when key decisions are being entertained in Congress or by agencies or even at the state and local level, where historically we've seen people that want to become governors, usually they're attorneys general, that come up with all kinds of sort of bizarre theories as to why dietary supplements or proteins or things of that nature should not be available to the consumer except by prescription or otherwise, which that just seems ludicrous to me. And frankly, if it wasn't for the NPA, that'd be the case in many jurisdictions. So we've been members because we feel strongly that consumers need to maintain a choice. They need to have a choice of what products they want and where they want them. And the less meddling that can happen with that transaction, the better. Now, I'm not suggesting that we have products that we, endorse products that are illegal or inappropriate or, illegal pharmaceuticals masquerading as supplements. We've had those challenges for years. The interesting dynamic is we're trying to get the agencies to do their job and enforce these issues, but either through staffing or priority selections, that seems to not get done very much. So we've been a member, we'll continue to be members. We believe strongly that having a seat at the table when key deliberations are happening either at state capital levels or in the halls of Congress in Washington, D.C., that it's important to be there. It's important to be prepared and to have arguments that are both scientific and meet critical thinking objectives. So that's why we continue to be members.
Great. Thank you, Mark. You talked about a little bit about some of those challenges around the agency enforcement, some products coming out there. What do you see are some of the top challenges facing the industry today?
Well, I think some of the top challenges have remained in that category for some time. By that, I mean to say that we have assayed and had independent verification. We've had other members of our board of directors conduct independent assays as well of products that are available on the internet. And when we find out that the contents do not match up with the label claims, we basically bring that to the attention of the regulatory agencies, and we're waiting for them to do something. And that's inappropriate because we're all taxpayers, and these people really should be enforcing the law, particularly when violations of the law, willfully putting out either a drug masquerading as a dietary supplement or mislabeling products in terms of country of origin, or even worse yet, just faking the label. Calling something CoQ10 that may be yellow number 5 and something else. That's consumer fraud. And so we think it's really mission critical to continue to emphasize, either with the press, certainly with the members of Congress, certainly with regulatory agencies, and to some degree, maybe even with the plaintiffs' bar, that it's kind of a wild west out there if the agencies that are tasked with overseeing this don't do anything about it, particularly when we give them, legitimate examples of what the problems really are. So I think that's going to continue. I think there'll also be a push for more regulations. I think that's inappropriate given the fact that I don't think the agencies have actually acted upon the regulatory schemes that they already have at their disposal. And maybe there'll be a request for more funding, which seems to be the world of bureaucracy these days. Give us more money and we'll do our job. That remains to be seen. But those are the challenges that exist. And I think to some degree, there'll be challenges also with imported materials that claim to be something but are in fact something else. So those areas really need to be addressed. And ultimately, I think at some point in time, we need to try and repatriate to North America, at the very least, a lot of these supply chain components that are really essential for our industry to flourish. So those are the challenges that we face, and we'll continue in the process of carrying the flag for, honesty, transparency, and integrity in the finished products that are available. But it takes all of us working together to achieve that.
Sure. So to that point is how do we get through those challenges, Mark? Are there some areas where you think of like what actions can the industry do in maybe even like the next 12 months to try to start to mitigate some of these challenges, which are, to your point before, have been ongoing?
Well, elections happen every 2 years in the House of Representatives, which means the day after a member is elected, they're campaigning again. One of the things to do is find out who your elected representatives are in Congress, and then go visit them. They come back to their district. They'll be there in August. They come back several times a year. Make an appointment to come in and say, listen, we need your support for this. We need you to hold the agencies accountable, either through their budgets or through oversight, that they're actually working on cleaning up fraudulent participants and removing them from the marketplace. The same is true of senators, although they get elected once every 6 years. It's important to know these people because they're the ones that ultimately hold the purse strings. They're the ones that have the capacity to hold hearings in public. And I think if you don't make the effort to at least know the people that you're working with or that are supposedly working for you, that's a problem. And I think, there's a certain point in time where you can say, okay, I'm a small company. I just have 2 stores, or I'm only doing $1 million a year in business. I don't have time for this. Well, actually, you need to make time for this, because sometimes it's a cup of coffee and a drive across town to visit with either the legislator or their chief of staff or one of their aides. And what Natural Products Association has done is come up with several novel concepts, and NPA makes these available in one-page forms that you can download and take with you when you sit and talk to these legislators to say, here's something we'd like you to consider supporting. That's one major thing that we all can do. Our recent day on the Hill, we had over 80 people come from around the country who had meetings with congressmen, their staffs, senators. I personally met 4 different senators. And some of them, you know, you wouldn't think would be an ally, but they start asking the right questions and you can see the wheels turning. So it's important to make contact with these people, because when something comes up, they generally refer or reply to people who they've actually met. So I think that's really, that's a key component of what we do at NPA.
Yeah, I think I lost your video there, Mark. You kind of locked up on me here, the video itself. That was a great answer too, by the way, sir. Oop, you still there? Oop, there you're back. Can you hear me okay, Mark?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, that was great.
Fine.
Thank you. A little bit of Wi-Fi issue there. It happens. It happens. So you kind of touched on that a little bit about that advocacy side of NPA. So what do you see specifically are some of the values NPA bring, the value NPA brings to the industry and also specifically to NAI?
Well, for a fact, having our executive director, having been formerly employed in a position of authority at the agency, is, I can't stress how important that actually is and how valuable that is to the industry. Dr. Fabricant was largely responsible for actually making some pretty bold moves when he was in charge of what became the Office of Dietary Supplements, by embargoing products, by seizing products, by prosecuting people who were selling illegal products or illegally critical. You know, having the former director, you know, provide the inside baseball evaluation of how best to deal with the agency, I think is critical. We also have, you know, one of our counsel at NPA is also a former deputy director of the Office of Dietary Supplements, Robert Durkin. You know, there's no substitute for experience. And, you know, between the experience of those gentlemen and yourself and Kyle Turk and others who, you know, labor in this field, I'll take experience over, you know, a pedigree any day of the week, because we're results driven. And in terms of my company, you know, they were very involved. The folks at NPA were very involved when we filed for our new dietary ingredient notification for carnosine, which is our exclusive form of beta-alanine. They were very helpful in pointing out areas that we really needed to focus on and aligning our submission with the statutory requirements. And that's an invaluable assistance. I know for a fact many members have derived significant benefit by picking up the phone and talking to somebody at HQ in DC to raise a critical point, and within a day or two getting responses that are not only informative but decisive. And so that's really kind of important if you're going to be part of a movable feast known as commerce. It's nice to know you have people that have the knowledge to immediately provide insights and advice. And I think that's one thing that NPA is really good at.
No, I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you. So with that being said, so what's next? What's kind of some of the things you see on the horizon for the industry? What does the future hold for the natural products industry?
Well, you know, it's interesting. After the whole COVID experience, you know, I just want to give kudos where they're due with Dr. Fabricant and his team. You know, our industry could have been decimated but because it's part of the food industry, it was deemed essential. And essential means you got to stay open. Now you got to stay open with appropriate restrictions and all kinds of challenges in the supply chain, but at least you got to stay open. That in and of itself, if that happens again, we need to be at the ready. I'm hopeful it doesn't happen, certainly in my lifetime or yours, but we've also seen that consumers are they're kind of having fatigue of all things pharmaceutical right now. They were told, get your vaccine, get your booster, get your double booster, get your triple booster. And I don't know that there's a bona fide causal effect, but some athletes are falling down with heart attacks, and you start asking the question, well, wait a minute here. Maybe I should start looking at alternatives that can help my body stay healthy and help me stay in shape and help me in the natural defense mechanism known as the immune system. And I think that's going to grow. I think the natural skepticism of taking things that are just totally synthetic is probably going to grow. And that opens the door, I think, for all things natural that are properly made, that are properly tested to make sure they don't contain, some lethal problems or poisons. I also think there's gonna be a moment in time where something has to give with CBD. The whole cannabidiol business and the whole hemp business has just been a travesty. We've taken tobacco farmers in parts of our country and we've convinced them that tobacco is probably the least valuable crop, and they plowed in their tobacco plants and planted hemp. And there are warehouses filled with rotting hemp that have nowhere to go. And the promise of CBD is actually manifest. Most places around the world are suggesting that CBD oils and tinctures and even ingestibles, properly vetted, can demonstrate some significant benefits for people. But we seem to have an agency caught in the headlights here that doesn't want to exercise their powers to do with CBD what they've had the rights to do with other compounds and done admirably, I might add. So something's going to give there. I think there's going to be a log jam that comes to head in the next couple of years. I also think that there needs to be better clarity regarding what happens with things like NAC and NMN, where on the one hand, they can be declared essential for health and they've been in the marketplace a long time. And then all of a sudden, because somebody says somebody tested it once for a drug application, you can't use it any longer. To me, that just seems like double jeopardy. Either the product is safe or it's not. And that should really be the ultimate arbiter. The consumers really need to reassert their power over these things. So I think that's going to be on the table for the foreseeable future. And we'll see how we respond.
No, I appreciate that, Mark. Any other points or comments you'd like to make, whether about NPA or the industry in general?
Well, I think, we've come out of some very difficult times. I think the industry is under some duress right now as the supply chains begin to normalize. But I think consumers are gravitating back to the use or the preference of natural products versus synthetic products. I think that's going to be something we're going to behold over the next 5 to 10 years. And I also think that at some point in time, inflation will come down and things will get a little more normal. But, time marches on and people keep getting older. And the demographics suggest that if you're not taking supplements to address a whole area that you may be deficient in your diet, that it's going to catch up with you. So as more and more people look at prevention and quality of life issues as they get older, I think you're going to see significant growth in the industry. We still have to continue to monitor, the bad guys and try and get them out of the business. And so we're going to be busy with that approach for the next several months, if not years. But again, I think that our future is bright as long as we don't allow it to be usurped by people who have different objectives.
That's great, Mark. I appreciate it. So thank you very much for making time for us today. I know you're out of the office and enjoying some time. So thank you, my friend. Thank you very much.